Hi everybody, I'm Bauman, and in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you 5 very specific things that I wish I knew when I first started out as an art student. So all the way back in 2004, I traveled from Miami, Florida, where I'm originally from, to Florence, Italy to study classical realism. This means drawing and painting in a very realistic style. There were so many things that I weren't prepared for. For starters, I had almost never in my life worked from life, and so working with live models all the time was a really difficult adjustment. But there were also some very specific things that I was not thinking the right way about, and these are the tips that I'm going to share with you now. And by the way, because maybe my face is not so interesting to look at the whole time, I'm going to show you a video of a block-in drawing of a portrait that I made just recently, so you can sit back and watch or sketch in your sketchbook while I'm getting this all off my chest. By the way, if you're interested in learning more about this block-in process that you're going to watch, on my Patreon, I run a course called the Block-in Bootcamp. These live lessons every month are specifically designed to help you get over that first stage of the drawing that's super important while getting accurate proportions and a good sense of design. There's a link in the description of this video if you want to get there. Anyway, let's get on to these 5 points. The first thing that I want to let you know that you might not be aware of is that in the problems and challenges that you're facing as an art student, you are definitively not alone. In fact, there's an entire book dedicated to explaining exactly the set of circumstances that you're entering as an art student, and it's called Art and Fear. I promise you that if you spend 10 minutes with this book, it will immediately start to deliver value into your life in the form of perspective and knowledge from experts who have been through what you're going through right now. It talks in great detail about a lot of the problems that you're experiencing and the challenges you're facing and the kinds of things that make you want to give up before you're even started. In fact, these are all pretty common to everybody that goes through the process of learning. When I started to draw, I was terrible at it. And when I started learning to draw, I got even worse because of all the interesting and fascinating, deep academic language surrounding it. I really got up into my own head about it, and I had a hard time translating the lessons I was learning into results. Initially, I felt very alone and very isolated in these challenges, and that made it even harder for me to make progress. Coming to grips with the fact that you're not alone and these are not unique challenges you're facing is a great way to gain perspective, get over it, and get on with progressing as an art student. The next thing I want to tell you, and this is particularly important, is that whether you're studying online or in person, you have to know that your teachers are not perfect, and we don't know everything. By that I mean, we each have strengths and weaknesses, and we have our own biases about what are great ideas for art students and bad ideas for art students. And one thing is for absolute certain, I've never met a teacher who has literally all the pieces to the puzzle. In general, we have quite a few, and we're trying to develop as clear a picture as we can for our students. But I can say as a teacher, inevitably, you can't be everything to everyone all the time. Now, here's how this tip applies to you. Your job as a student is not to listen and apply 100% of what we tell you all the time without thinking about it critically. It's your job to collect as many different pieces as you can from these different instructors that you're working with so that you can put together the clearest possible picture of the puzzle that represents your education as an art student. And let me also clarify a little bit of what I mean by this, because perhaps it's easy to misunderstand. I don't mean that you should take advice from your teachers and question every single sentence of it until there's no belief or credibility left in the experience. I mean that you should listen generously, take in as much as possible, apply the actionable information that you receive, but also think critically about it and contrast the advice you're getting versus other things that you've heard. As an art teacher, I've got to tell you, I personally love and thrive on good, constructive questions about the information that I'm giving out to students. If anything, it only helps me clarify my communication. The next thing I want to talk about is the kind of information I think you should seek out as a student. When you're getting into the arts as a young person, there's a lot of really great information out there about inspiration and high expression in art and how to develop a style and all the things that as a mature artist you need to really embrace. But what I want to recommend to you is that you look for hard skills. So studying things like anatomy, color theory, drawing fundamentals, manufacturing materials that you use to make fine art, and even art history. These are all hard skills that you can internalize and that have clear applications in the real world. They're not related to whatever art is in fashion at that time, and putting them into your skill base contributes to making you a more versatile artist when you go out into the world to make a living. An important side note for me to mention here is that even some of the most commercially successful artists I know also supplement their income through teaching. These hard skills will allow you to have something to offer students rather than just your raw abilities as an art maker. On to the fourth tip, I want to talk about what we're even doing here. The goal is not to arrive at a place where you have got the skills to be an artist. The goal is actually to always keep learning. It's hard to remember when you're first starting out that education is not pre-packaged and predestined to end at a certain point. Going to schools for 3 or 4 years and getting good skills, and even maybe getting a diploma at the end of it, can be very misleading. From personal experience, I can say that when I finally left the academy after 4 years, I had just enough skills to propel myself to really start learning to be an artist properly. By that I mean, I could draw stuff and paint stuff and make it look kinda how it was supposed to. But I want to tell you that that's the baseline for being a professional artist, and eventually you need to aspire much higher than that. So as the old saying goes, don't aim too low and risk only hitting that mark. Alongside this point is a certain kind of anxiety that I hear from a lot of students I work with. They'll ask questions like, when do I stop and make the art that I'm supposed to make, that I really want to make, the art that really inspires me? Usually they're saying this in their first or second year of study, and the answer that I have to give is not a particularly satisfying one, but I think it's really true. Your art career is hopefully going to be a very long one, and you would do best to focus on your studies at an early stage, because later on, you're not going to be offered so much opportunity to stop and study and not be productive. Students need to produce learning and growth, not products. And this can be a very difficult idea to assimilate because it's actually a really humble one. So to sum up this point, I just want to say, be patient with your studies and never stop learning. The fifth and final point is probably the most important thing that I can tell you about being an art student. In fact, it's the one thing without which none of the other stuff works. The tip is this: you gotta bring cold passion into the studio. Let me explain what I mean. There are two types of passion that you experience as an artist. There's hot passion, and that's being in the moment and being super excited. You can't wait to get into the studio and splash paint around, or graphite, or whatever medium it is that you're using. You're on fire to get to work. Hot passion is really, really great. It can carry you through some days when you're maybe dragging behind a little bit. Cold passion, however, for students is much more important. And what it means is this: you need to bring the same consistent energy and focus into the studio with you every single time you go to work. Being really on fire one day and totally dead the next and distracted is not a great way to exercise the kinds of skills that you're trying to improve. When you're studying to be an artist, learning to draw and paint is a really long process. It takes a ton of time. And more importantly, it takes a lot of repetition. Spread over a long enough timeline, cold passion ensures that you make an incremental process every single time that you go into the studio, because you're maintaining a consistent level of focus and application. Hot passion comes in fits and spurts. So I say to all of you art students out there, take this advice. Cold passion will take you where you're trying to go. One of the easiest ways that I've found to generate this cold passion is to think about removing resistance from your routine. We all know that scheduling studio time each day will help you create the kind of focused energy you need to make progress. But in addition to that, there are lots of little things that happen along the way that create resistance or friction between you and creating the kind of environment you need to really work. A good example of this is the startup cost. If every time you work, you have to set up your easels, set up your paper, get out your pencils from a drawer, and basically create a whole new working environment, that startup cost is 30 to 45 minutes of energy that you could have spent focused on your work. So try to step back from yourself a little bit, look at your routine objectively, and see how you can remove different kinds of resistance and pave the way for a fluid routine that allows you to focus a little bit and improve a little bit every single time you work. By the way, cold passion deserves a whole video of its own, and eventually I'm going to make one, and it will definitely be on my YouTube channel. Now, as we come to the end of these 5 tips and we come to the end of this block-in demo, I notice a couple of things. One is that I really don't like Strathmore sketching paper, and that's caused me to have a block-in that actually I don't really like all that much. So here's a bonus tip. Number 6, set your standards really high, but try not to take it too personal. You're gonna make hundreds of drawings in your lifetime, and some of them are gonna be really, really bad. You can either save those bad drawings to reflect upon in better times in the future, or like I'm doing here, you can choose to chop it up, crumple it up, and chuck it in the bin so that you can clear your mind, clear your studio, and get on to the next project without that ghost lingering in the background. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video and spending time with me today. If you want to learn more about this process or anything about painting and drawing portraits, you can always go to my Patreon page. A $10 subscription gets you access to tons and tons and tons of lessons all about drawing fundamentals and portraiture. If you do like this video and want to see more like it, please remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you for the next one.